Good morning, everybody. Today we are in Chicago, Illinois, and we are at Rosehill Cemetery, which is one of the oldest and most populated and most historic cemeteries in the Chicago area. Now, today we're going to talk about one specific person, but I'll also show you some other things as we go. There will be a full cemetery tour coming up, but today we're going to check out a little bit of this cemetery, and I'm going to tell you the story of an American icon that's buried just behind this chapel here. So let's go take a look. Now, when I mention that this is a beautiful cemetery, I mean it. There are a lot of really big mausoleums here, very interesting architecture, and some of the memorials here and even the front gate were designed by major architects. But let's take a look at this. This is the grave of Adam Schaff. I'm not exactly sure who this is. A quick Google search didn't really come up with much. This is one that I've driven by a couple of times, but not exactly sure who this is. He's not the topic of today's video, but I was walking right by it and I thought, I have to show this. Now this over here is the Memorial Chapel. I'm always pretty fascinated by the architecture in cemeteries because most of these buildings were built back in the 1800s and they're still standing. But it's always kind of fascinating to see what these places look like and how they were constructed. Now I'll get into the story in just a minute here, but we kind of have to go and check this out. Now, as you can see, this place just goes on and on and on. There are so many interesting memorials here. But just in here, this says 1899. It's always interesting to check out places like this. Now, today's video is going to be on the legendary, iconic brand Oscar Mayer. Now, Oscar Mayer was created by a guy named Oscar Mayer, and a lot of people don't actually realize that that was the name of the person that created the empire. But for a little bit of backstory, if you don't know what the Oscar Mayer company is, they create hot dogs, lunch meats, bologna, all kinds of stuff that as kids we loved. I always loved a good hot dog, and you could slice it up and mix it in with macaroni and cheese, and most of us probably had that as kids. But for a little bit of information on Oscar Mayer, he was born in Germany and he started working in meat factories. That was really the only thing he knew. It was, packing meats, preparing meats, butchering, all that kind of stuff. And he ended up moving to Chicago at the age of 14 years old. He got a job at a company, Armour and Company in Chicago, which was a pretty big company then, and it's still a big company. But he didn't want to work for somebody else. He wanted to start his own thing. And he ended up saving money, and he told his brothers that he wanted to go into business and kind of have it be a family thing. And he asked his brothers, their names were Max and Gottfried, he asked them to kind of learn the art of sausage making. And he went into business with them. They started their own shop, and they were in business for about 5 years. And then the place that they were renting from, the guy that was their landlord basically did not want to renew their rent. He was very jealous of the success of Oscar Mayer and his brothers and basically forced them out. But it became a decent thing because he ended up buying a building that he used for business, and he used it as his personal home. He got married, he had a son, and he continued to grow his business. Now at that point, business was going pretty well. Oscar Mayer started to sponsor polka bands, and then he sponsored a German exhibit at the 1893 World Exhibition. Now in 1900, he had 43 employees, and he was supplying meat in the Chicago area and in Chicago and the suburbs, and it just kept growing and growing. Now, Oscar Mayer was one of the earliest participants of the Food Safety and Inspection Service created under the Federal Meat Inspection Act of 1906. And that was done to verify the contents of the products. Now, this is the final resting place of Oscar Mayer right here. Now, he was born March 29th, 1859, and he passed away March 11th, 1955. Now, by the time of his death in 1955, he had over 9,000 employees, and he had facilities in Los Angeles and Davenport, Iowa, Madison, Wisconsin, Philadelphia, and he was a global name by the time he passed away. And Oscar Mayer is still sold today. But this is a very humble final resting place. He's right next to his wife. This is Louise, and she lived from 1864 to 1931. Now, Oscar Mayer, this is the family plot right here. And if you come to visit the chapel that I showed at the first part of the video, it's just past that, right directly behind it, and it'll be to your left, kind of on the corner here. But Oscar Mayer, I mean, everybody when I was a kid wanted a weenie whistle. And I wrote a letter to Oscar Mayer when I was a kid, and they sent me back like 3 weenie whistles, and they sent me a Matchbox car of the Wienermobile. And I was going to try to get a tour of the Wienermobile today to add to this video, but we're not going to be able to make it there on time. But I will do that in the future because that might be something kind of fun to do. But Oscar Mayer, I mean, this guy was the kind of the epitome of somebody who moved to America to fulfill a dream. And boy, what a legacy this guy had. I mean, people are still purchasing Oscar Mayer products. It's still one of the best-selling hot dogs in the world. And what else can you say about him? I mean, this is a family plot. He's surrounded by family members here. But this is a very beautiful cemetery, a very nice location here. And there's going to be a lot more coming up from this cemetery, but I wanted to give you something special for today, something that is a little bit different than the norm. But that's all I have for right now. So thanks for joining me on this video. I hope you learned a little something about Oscar Mayer and the brand and the man. But thanks for joining today, and we'll catch you on the next video.